So let me start off by asking you, when you were called by the Canadian authorities a few weeks back and said that you are being declared as a person of interest in a murder investigation, and then subsequently, of course, there was the announcement that you are being recalled along with some of your colleagues. What was going through your mind? What did it feel like when did it come as a bolt from the blue, a complete shocker?
It was a shocker, certainly, and I was told about it verbally, and then a note was given to me, which then I sent back to Delhi, and the Delhi decided that all of us should be withdrawn from there. And thereafter, a day later, they also declared us persona non grata. So yes, it was a mixed feeling. It was sad that they did it, and it was also sad that there were other tools available they could have used to resolve the issue. But that was not in our control, unfortunately, they did it.
But Ambassador, tell me this. I mean, you've been a career diplomat. You've been in the Foreign Service for the last 36 years. You've done a post-graduation from IIT Delhi. After having served this country for almost 4 decades, for another country, and supposedly a friendly country, to say that you were spying for the government of India, that you were an agent, what did that make you feel like?
I feel ashamed of the way in which they gather the information about a personality. Secondly, I feel that they don't understand the role of a career diplomat. So they have professional diplomats, good friends of mine, still good friends. But I was quite taken aback. It baffled me that without any warning, without any alert, they decided to play this game. But that was their prerogative and they did it.
Do you know why? I mean, now that you have hindsight of 2 weeks and you're looking back, do you feel like, you as you said, they were playing a game and you became a victim in this game?
I would say my own sense is that it was playing to the domestic political lobbies. That was one. Second, that they didn't understand what could be the repercussions on the bilateral relations of doing so. And thirdly, I would say that I was a bit outspoken, and I always tried to I always tried to be as polite as possible when it is diplomatic niceties.
Yes.
But when there was an attack on my national interest, such as challenging the territorial integrity and sovereignty of India, it was difficult to keep quiet. So I was seen as someone who was standing up to the Canadian system. Probably they didn't like it.
So tell me, this whole thing actually came to a head on the 18th of September last year when the Prime Minister of Canada stood up in Parliament and said, at that time he said, there were credible allegations of Indian agents being involved in the murder of Nijjar. You were ambassador for over a year since then. Did they give you anything to back up this credible allegation?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I learnt about it from the TV because I was watching the session of the Parliament on that day. I only knew that something might come up, but I never thought that someone will be so illogical to say things like these without having any hard evidence in hand.
Did it surprise you that the Prime Minister of a country was standing on the floor of his country's parliament and making such an allegation, such a grave allegation, and that too against a friendly democracy?
Certainly I was surprised, but not only surprised. Later on, when he declared in front of the Foreign Interference Commission that he didn't have hard evidence, I felt that it was a sad day that someone who is the leader, elected leader of such a beautiful country with beautiful people, and without any hard evidence, you started breaking a relationship which have been time tested.
So what do you think then happened when he said it first a year ago, from credible allegations to his testimony before the Foreign Election Interference Panel, where he said it was not hard evidentiary proof? Those are the words that he used. What changed, or was it just to give away that they had nothing? I mean,
soon I think about a week and a half after he made that announcement in the Parliament, he himself came out in the newspaper and said that this was meant to put a chill on India. Now, for a mature statesman, this is not expected.
Have they, in the last year that you were there, given anything so one of the contentions that they make is, look, this is intel. Now it's up to the Indian authorities to investigate and make this into evidence.
For investigation as well, you have to give us something which can be legally acceptable. After all, if, for an example, just for an example, if we have to intercept a telephone number,
Yeah.
we'll need a legal authorization for that. That can only happen if we have enough evidence that such interception is required. So therefore, the legality of the evidence is as valid in their country as it is valid in India. They are not the only country in the world which has got rule of law. We have rule of law ourselves. So therefore, the legal threshold has to be observed.
So what is India's best case explanation for what happened to Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
I have no idea, and I would not like to guess. In Canada, there are multiple gangs which do gun running and human trafficking and drug peddling. So there are many of them, and these are lucrative businesses. So I do not know if it is due to the gang rivalry, if it is due to the turf war. And why I'm saying that is, I'm very mindful of the fact that the investigation is still on. And till the time it has been concluded and presented in the court of law, we should not comment on this.
I believe there are 4 individuals who have been apprehended. The adjournment has happened about 4 or 5 times already since May, since these individuals were apprehended. Has any information been shared with the Indian side, by the Canadian side, who these individuals are, what they suspect their role is, and so on?
Not in details.
Okay.
I was told on phone that these arrests have been made, and according to our records, they are Indian nationals, and they will be charged for first-degree murder. Thereafter, the RCMP held a press conference. There again, they announced the same thing, and then they continued that path, and that's fine.
Okay.
Listen, there is certainly a crime which has been committed.
Yeah.
I detest Nijjar because he was a great terrorist. But at the same time, whatever is the legal due process in a country should be observed. So these people who have been arrested on a certain allegation is still not proven.
Of course.
And all 4 of them are saying that we are innocent. So they have been arrested on certain allegations. The trial would begin because it has been postponed continuously, as
Yes.
you know. I think the next date is 21st of November. These 4 have not asked for any consular access so far.
Okay.
So we really do not know their state. And once the court has reached a verdict, only then we will know that the first court in this case has decided whatever it has decided. And for these four people, appeals will also be available.
Yeah.
So till the time everything is exhausted, how do we know whether the allegations would actually measure up to the judicial threshold?
So far, there have been no requests for any kind of consular access to these individuals?
Not by these 4, no.
Not by these 4 individuals. I do want to ask you, and you've said this previously as well, that over the last 20 years or so, India has made, I think, about 24 extradition requests to Canada. Can you shed some light on what is the nature of these requests? Who are these individuals against whom these requests? And have any of these actually materialized?
So, as per the latest figure, I think it is 26.
Okay.
And 4 or 5 have been acted upon.
Okay. Any of them Khalistani, suspected
Yes.
Khalistani
Yes.
elements? Would you know a number?
I would avoid giving
it.
the number and the names.
Okay.
Because it's a
Sure,
process.
fair enough.
And others are still awaiting discussions and disposal. The difficulty is that some of them are lying there for 10 years. So if there is intent to resolve it, then certainly it can be done. And those discussions, through those such discussions, we can see those cases resolved, the justice done, and the crime that they have committed, they are punished for that crime.
Is one of the individuals against whom an extradition request is pending is Goldie Brar?
Yes, that's right.
So explain this to me, Ambassador. Goldie Brar is wanted for a number of crimes, including the murder of Sidhu Moosewala, the famous Punjabi singer. And the RCMP commissioner the other day said that the Indian government agents are using elements from Lawrence Bishnoi's gang. How does this work? This Goldie Brar is supposedly the number 2 in Lawrence Bishnoi's gang, and against whom an extradition request is pending. And those same people are being used by the government of India.
Not only that, let me add to that. Goldie Brar was on the most wanted list by the BOLO, which is a civic organization, works with the law and order authorities. And all of a sudden his name is missing.
He's no longer in the
wanted list. So how do I explain this? So we have said that we need this person because of the crimes that he committed in India, or he has made the crimes being committed in India. Then, on our hint, he was put in the most wanted list, and all of a sudden, he disappears.
And there's been no intimation.
And he's a Canadian citizen.
No intimation to the
intimation to us.
To the Indian authorities.
Absolutely. So what do I read? I only read that there is some reason why you don't want him to be exposed.
So when the RCMP says Government of India is engaging Bishnoi and Bishnoi gang members, and the number 2 man is suddenly off the extradition list, what does that signal?
I would say bad intel and probably poor analysis.
Is it also bad faith?
It's distrustful. Not only bad faith, it's distrustful. Or when we are giving you the information, our agencies gave them the information on Goldie Brar. And today you are saying that you know more than Goldie Brar than we do for the crimes that he has done in India. That's laughable.
So India sends an extradition request. Canada says we are perusing the matter, and then a few months later, mysteriously, his name disappears from the most wanted list.
And again, just for your viewers, this most wanted list is not compiled by the government authorities. This is by a civic organization which works with law and order authorities.
I do want to come to the politics because, one of the contentions that's been made is that Mr. Trudeau is doing this, for his own political domestic constituency. And you said in an earlier interview that there would be no more than 10,000 hardline Khalistani elements out of a population of about 8 lakhs or so Sikh Canadians. That doesn't seem like a good enough number to be pursuing this kind of politics, which has pretty much destroyed an important bilateral relationship.
So these 10,000 further sort of intimidate close to another 90,000 to 100,000 people of Indian origin. So say it grows to 100,000, for example.
Okay.
Even then it is a very small number as compared to 20 million, so 2 crores. Not 20 million, I'm sorry, 2 million, which is 20 lakhs of people of Indian origin. But what happened was, over the decades, the Khalistani extremists and terrorists have been able to get their people into various organizations, constitutional as well as executive organizations in Canada. So therefore, they have much more influence as compared to just these 10,000 people. There are people in the parliament who sympathize with the Khalistanis. There are staffers of ministers and parliamentarians who again sympathize with them. There are people in law enforcement departments who are sympathizers of Khalistan. So they have, if I can use the word very loosely, they have infiltrated all these institutions and organizations. And therefore, when I look at only 10,000, that will not tell you the real story of their influence. Even these 10,000, they are the most vocal part of the Indo-Canadian community. So as we say in India that the baby who cries the most gets the milk.
Yeah.
And that is what is happening there as well.
But what about the silent majority in the Indian community? There's close to 1 million Hindu Canadians as well, and they are most affected by all of this Khalistani stuff. Even as you said, a majority of the Sikh Canadians are also anti all of this. How come that pressure is not being brought to bear on Mr. Trudeau and his politics?
Unfortunately, that had not happened. And, there are certain, what they call as ridings, what we call as constituencies.
Yeah.
So there are certain constituencies which depend a lot on the block voting by the Khalistanis. Others are spread all over the country,
Yeah.
and therefore their voting or not voting may not impact that much. It will impact, of course, their voters in the in the elections. That is my reading.
Okay.
But again, I'm no one to comment on the domestic politics of the country. Canadians will decide who is elected. Canadians will decide who is the Prime Minister of the country or other senior executives.
The polls there seem to suggest that Mr. Trudeau is very badly off electorally. He's 20 points behind the Conservative leader. That, as you said, is their domestic politics. We don't want to get into that. Do you see, even if a new government comes into power after elections next year or even before that, do you see the state of the bilateral relationship as being, can be rescued from this point?
See, first of all, one thing which I want to make very clear that Canadians will choose the next government.
Of course.
And whosoever comes,
Sure.
we have to do business with that government.
Sure.
And we are quite capable of doing that. Secondly, there is a condition for relation to move north. And the condition is very simple. Please do not allow your territory, your soil, to be used by your citizens to challenge India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. That is the ask. Simple ask. Criminal behaviors should be punished. And criminal behaviors, I mean against India. If you want to develop trust, then we have to look after Canadian national interests in India. They should look after India's national interests in Canada.
I do want to ask you, some of these individuals against whom extradition requests are pending, Lakhbir Singh, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Goldie Brar you mentioned, all of these elements landed up in Canada around 2017, 2 years after Mr. Trudeau came to power, and they were all given citizenship, and ever since this whole Khalistani separatism, advocacy, etc. has increased. Do you see a connection between the two?
See, the immigration had increased, and therefore more Indian nationals came to Canada. Many of them opted to stay back. And then there is a process to gain Canadian nationality, and they followed that process. Some of them followed the asylum process to get the Canadian citizenship or permanent residentship. So they had different paths to follow, but at the end, they were resident in Canada, some on permanent residency, some others on Canadian citizenship. Whether or not it was encouraged by the present government in Canada, difficult to say. But if the window was opened wide, more people will come.
You think the fallout of that has been the announcement that we had a couple of days ago that they are reducing the number of foreign workers by 20%, and I believe Indians will be affected by that?
You know, my own understanding is that Canada is not able to generate enough jobs for the immigrants who are coming. It is not able to generate or build enough houses for them to live. So therefore, the only solution in the short term was to curtail the total number of people who would enter Canada to live, so that the housing crisis could be a little less impacted, a little more impacted, and the inflation and the price rise, jobs, they could be at a better and sweeter spot.
The Trudeau government's contention is also that some sensitive information was given to the Indian side in a meeting that happened in Singapore a few days ago, and some of the information of that meeting was leaked also to a foreign publication. What do you make of that? Was any information shared in that meeting or prior to that or subsequent to that? And the fact that details of that meeting have been leaked to a foreign publication?
So, first of all, not a shred of evidence. And when I say evidence, it has to be legally acceptable. Not a shred of evidence has been shared with us by the Canadians. That's the first one. Second one, the leaking of information. In India, it's a crime. I do not know about Canada. I'm not an expert on Canadian law. But in India, if such senior officials have leaked such sensitive information under the Official Secret Act, they could be charged criminally in a court of law. But Canada, again, I'm not an expert on Canadian law, I can't talk about it. But in most of the jurisprudence in the world, this will be a crime.
And I believe all of this happened around the same time. That meeting, your, what you were conveyed to by the Canadian authorities, you being recalled. Do you see all of this being connected? Were they setting you up? Is my question.
See, everything would be orchestrated by the same government, by same people at the helms of affairs. So yes, in a way they are connected, because after all these decisions were taken by the same group of people. And all the information for taking those decisions were available to the same group of people. So yes, they would be connected.
This whole thing was a setup. You were set up to be...
I would say it was orchestrated.
It was orchestrated.
Rather than calling it a setup.
So let me come again to this whole thing about, there was one argument you could say that look at the way the government of India has responded to the allegations from Canada, and look at the way the government of India has responded to the allegations from the United States. You're cooperating with the United States government, but you're not cooperating with Canada. What would you say to that?
I'm no one to talk about India-US relation.
Sure.
That's not my mandate. I don't know anything about that. But my mandate used to be India-Canada relations, so that I can tell you. You know, a crime was committed. Someone was murdered, so a crime was committed. Now, when the crime is committed, then what do? You gather the information leading to evidence, collect the evidence, go to the court of law. So, and if the evidence needs corroboration from your partners, and I still call Canada as our partners, if they need the corroboration, what is the way they do it? They come with the evidences, consult us, and then say that, look, these are the evidences. Some of the leads lead to my country. Can you please check it out? But the evidences have to be legally acceptable.
You think the difference in the nature of the response is because you reckon the Americans did that and the Canadians did not?
Again, I will not go to the Americans.
Fair enough, yeah.
But the Canadians have not given us any legally acceptable shred of evidence.
I do want to take that thought a little forward. Where do you see the trajectory now of Indo-Canadian relations? Because after all, we have a large diaspora. There are people who have families there, people who want to travel, so on and so forth. What is the fallout of all of this on those residents, the citizens of Canada and the citizens of India?
India-Canada had been good friends. Khalistan problem is nothing new in Canada. And I hope India and Canada will remain very good friends and partners. This is a phase we should pass by. But let's be very clear that for the relationship to become better or move northwards, it is very important that our core concern be addressed by the Canadian government or Canadian governments.
And the core concern is?
The core concern is, please don't allow your soil, your territory to be used by your citizens against the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India.
Are you also concerned that it's almost like after the Canadians came out and said what they said, and after you were withdrawn as ambassador, there seems to be corroborative statements of support coming from their Five Eyes partners? It's almost like they are taking the Canadian side and not the Indian side. Does that worry you?
See, again, I will not talk about other countries, but as far as Canada is concerned, I am looking at it very objectively. Support, no support, statements, they are narratives. I am looking at hard evidence. Show me the hard evidence. Narratives, anyone can build. I can build a narrative. So I'm not looking at narrative at all. Narratives may trouble us on a negotiating table, but they are just narratives. I need to see hard evidence because there is a crime which has been committed. India has been wrongly implicated. I need to see the hard evidence for implicating India in such a nasty manner.
But you said the narrative can or potentially could hurt. Is India making an attempt to correct that narrative? Not with the Canadians, but certainly with our other friends and partners.
Even with Canadians.
Okay.
See, we have to raise awareness.
Yes.
And that is one of the reasons why we have Indian diplomats all over. So awareness raising had been going on, and still the 95%, 98% of Indo-Canadians there, they know the narrative. They do understand that what's happening is wrong. The only thing they had not been doing so far was conveying their concerns to their chosen elected representatives.
But what about other countries? Other countries who, like I said, may be towing Canada's line or at least echoing Canada's line. Should we attempt to correct the perception?
Absolutely, we should tell them what our perspectives are. But again, that's not for me to decide. That is government as a whole decision. But I think any aberration in any narrative for a country which has emerged on the world's platform, a country, India, we need to correct them.
So, Mr. Verma, you've served the country well for 35 years now. You have, I think, about a year's service, maybe a little less than
About
a year.
9 months.
Yeah, about less than a year's service left. This is the biggest challenge that you have endured in your career. This is the biggest Agni Pariksha, if I can use that phrase.
It was an Agni Pariksha, undoubtedly. It was an interesting time. As a diplomat, we take things positively, and we also always try to find fun in pain.
What is the one lesson you've learned from this episode? Personally, I mean.
See, personally, that never take things for granted.
Never take things for granted. This is as much true for diplomacy as it is for one's own life.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verma.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love to have spoken to you. Thank you. Namaskar.